we was in a society where we could actually try and persuade people that the cuts were wrong, then that's what we would try and do, and we'll still try and do that. We won't be attempting to take strike action for the sake of it. However, if people are faced with their pensions being shut down, their pay freeze for 2 years and beyond, and having thousands of jobs being put onto the dole queue, then as a trade union, I mean, what's the point in being a trade union if you're not going to actually do what you should be doing, and that's defending people's jobs and defending people's terms and conditions?
So if it comes to it, what kind of action do you anticipate? What kind of services are going to be shut down during strike action?
Well, we don't know what the austerity cuts are going to be on October the 20th, but it's quite clear that every single department of the government are going to have cuts between 25 and 40%, which will mean that everyone in society will be affected. Those in the private sector that rely on contracts of the public sector, local authorities, etc., or government contracts, they're going to be affected. And as unemployment goes up when the public sector workers go onto the dole queues, it will mean that pay will come down, because you can't have high unemployment and high pay. It just doesn't happen. So what we're saying is, we ain't saying that there'll be an all-out general strike. What we are saying, if groups of workers in one industry are taking action and groups of workers in another industry are taking action, basically defending themselves against the same attacks by this government to cut public sector workers and to cut their pay and conditions, then it should be coordinated so they take action together.
The problem is that not all of you agree. Not everybody there thinks that strike action is the right way to go. Les Bayliss, for example, of Unite, he says that strikes would turn what you see as the victims, public sector workers, into villains, that you're going to be hugely unpopular with the public if you go out on strike.
Well, number one, it's not about being popular. This will go beyond those people that actually work.
But how do you get your message across if
those
the public are against you?
Have their welfare benefits cut. Well, that's at the moment in time. A lot of people don't think the cutbacks are going to affect them. You know, when you hear people say, well, we don't mind cutbacks so long as it's 500 miles away. But if it's their school that closes down, or their hospital ward that closes down, or it's their parents who have their winter bill, fuel bill cut, then those cuts will definitely affect people. And what we're saying is that the only response that you've got at the end of the day is either to sit back and be attacked, or to stand up and fight. And our belief of a trade union is got to stand up and fight, rather than accept loads of more people being put on the dole queues and youngsters having less opportunities of having work.
The thing is, though, the public may not take your point of view at all. They may actually agree with the government, who says we've got to cut now, we've got to cut deeply, we've got to cut fast, otherwise we'll have to pay more interest on our massive debts and we'll end up in an even worse situation and bigger cuts down the line. The public might not agree with you. They might think, actually, we back the government with this.
Well, when you see last week the scale of the attacks that are going to take place, where, this is not me saying it, the report last week said that up to 45,000 frontline policemen and police women could lose their jobs. I don't think the public will accept that 45,000 police men and women on the front line deserve to lose their jobs, and the insecurity that goes with a society of less police officers. So I think that's a reaction. And second, when people talk about the cutbacks, there's tax avoidance and tax evasion. Tax evasion is illegal anyway and should be buttoned down. But tax avoidance, where big, rich businessmen and women putting their money in the Cayman Islands or the Isle of Man, not paying tax but earning their revenue in this country. And our belief is, rather than attack the single housewife who lives on a housing estate with a few children about how much benefit she gets, we should start looking about the billions of pounds that is avoided in paying tax in this country and put out to the islands like the Cayman Islands and Bermuda.
The problem is that's not going to bring in enough money on its own, is it? Just tackling tax avoidance isn't going to get us out of our problems, or someone would have thought of that.
Well, according to the Public Commercial Service Union, who've done a report, whose members all work in the tax offices, they said that there's £120 billion being done on tax avoidance. On top of that as well, we're going to spend a further £70 billion on new Trident nuclear weapons. I thought that after the Cold War that we didn't need Trident nuclear weapons anymore. So you can save, for example, £200 billion, which is £50 billion more than we do, just by doing those two things. And I'm sure there's a number of other issues that we could pay the deficit back on. However, we don't believe that pensioners should have their winter fuel bills cut. We don't believe that people who have been injured at work should have their incapacity benefits cut. And we don't believe that single parents on housing estates should be the target of this government. This crisis was caused by the bankers, and working people have been asked to pay the debt for it. And we believe that those people that caused the crisis, the bankers who are still receiving big bonuses, they should pay for the damage they've done to this economy of ours.
So you think it might be necessary to have strike action across the country. You've also talked about going further than that, haven't you, about acts of civil disobedience. What do you think it's going to take to convince the government to change its mind?
Well, number one, what we're talking about is peaceful civil disobedience. What happened in the poll tax when, as we were told then, when the poll tax come in, that there's nothing we can do, poll tax is coming in and it's going to be in. The reality was that the people of this country stood up and said we're not having it, it's unfair and unjust, and the poll tax was got rid of. What we're talking about here is that people on housing estates who are not working, pensioners, those people that have been incapacitated by having injuries at work, who are not in a trade union, their only option they've got is by taking to the streets and basically protesting that what's wrong is an attack on working people and an unfair and unjust society.
You've also talked about more than that. You talked about people dressed up as Batman climbing on number 10 Downing Street and Spider-Man on Buckingham Palace. I mean, tell us a little bit, how far would you be prepared to go?
Well, if you look over the course of history, for example, women only got a vote because they broke the law. Over 100 years ago, women never got a vote. Now they now got a vote, and history demonstrated that they was right what they'd done. Our trade union movement was born out of illegality. 170 years ago, it was illegal to be in a trade union. And as you know, the Toll Puddle Martyrs formed the union, was sent to Australia, there was mass demonstrations, and people got the right to be in a trade union. But the likes of Swampy, if you remember Swampy, who dug under airports and tunnels, and he got the point over about the environment and the damage that new airport runways were done, what we're talking about here is peaceful demonstrations. The single house parents who had a demonstration a few years ago who climbed up number 10. They didn't do no damage, but what they'd done was they got their message over that there was something unjust and unfair going out there. And in life, you have to judge at the end of the day what you believe is right or wrong. And we believe that those people that are not organised by a trade union should link up with those that are organised into a trade union to defend society in general.
Bob Crow of the RMT Union, thanks for joining us here on Afternoon Live this afternoon.